Hey, what's going on, guys? Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Amigoscode. In this crash course, I'm going to take you through the journey of learning how to implement the functionality of storing files using Spring Boot, React, and AWS. I've done this video a couple years ago and I decided to basically revamp, and because it's part of the full stack professional course, which is over 60 hours and growing with new features that you guys have been requesting. So I decided to just revamp the video that I've done a couple years ago. And also, if you want to gain a certificate on the website, you can basically enroll and basically take this crash course and gain a certificate. And this course is hands-on, so get ready and clone the repo. And yeah, I want you to learn something new from this video. If you're new to this channel, literally just take 1 second and subscribe. And also, for all of you guys, smash the like button. Come on, I'll give you 1 second. That's it. Without further ado, let's go ahead and learn about Spring Boot, React, AWS, and S3. Catch me on the next one. In here, I've put this diagram together where you can basically have an idea and see all the different services that you need within AWS. But basically right here, this is our API that you basically have deployed successfully to an EC2 instance backed by ECS. Now, the API actually is running on this EC2 instance, and we want to upload pictures to a bucket. So Amazon, they have a service called S3, which basically allows you to store files. Now, before you can upload files, you need to basically configure the role. So the role that is called AWS-Elastic Beanstalk-EC2 role, in my case, to have the ability of accessing this bucket in here. If you don't have that, then whenever this EC2 instance that has a role tries to access the bucket, i.e. to upload, it will fail. So we need to attach a role. Then we can use the SDK by Amazon, and I'm gonna let you go and try and figure out which one to use, but later I'll give you the solution. But basically you can use the S3 client. And what I want you to do in this exercise is the ability of you having two implementations. So one which basically connects to the real S3 bucket, and then the other one that basically acts as an S3 backed by a folder under a path within your file system. So in my case, I'm going to put it under home, a folder called .amigoscode, and then S3, and then images, and then user ID, and then the image ID. So this will be the idea. And in here, this should be number 3, in fact, right here. And also what you need to do is to store the fact that a customer has an image so that you can then later retrieve the image of the bucket with the corresponding ID. And here you see that we do have IntelliJ, and basically in here you should be able to run your code. And what I really want to see is actually an integration test that basically simulates all of this. So adding to AWS, so S3, but also to the fake one in here. And mainly, you know, when we are running integration tests, we're not going to have the ability of communicating with AWS services. So that's why we do have this fake implementation, so that the integration tests do work when we use them within GitHub Actions. And on the front end in here, I've got basically a bunch of people in here, so people are messing up with this application at the moment. But in here, so if I click on update, so here I've got this basically drag and drop component where I can drag a picture in here, or I can select. So let me show you the drag and drop feature. So here I do have a couple of pictures, and literally I can take any picture. So let's say Georgie, so Georgian. Let's just take my picture in here, and here I can drop the picture, and this will upload to the server. and currently I don't have any loading, and you can see that basically took some time, but it was actually uploading the picture. But basically, if I search now for Georgie, so G or G, is it Georgie? G or G or G or G. There we go. So this is Georgie right here, and you can see my picture. Also, if I click on update in here, now you can see that the picture is present in here, and obviously I can basically upload the picture again. So let me just now put a female, for example, and just bear in mind that, as I said, so there's no loading component at the moment, but you can add that yourself. So if I drag the picture, so at this point it's actually loading, and this time it was faster. So if I search for Georgie again, so Command F, so G or G or G, and you can see that this is the picture now. Click on update, and it's working beautifully. Awesome. Let's learn how to implement all of this. So for this course, I want to be using IntelliJ as the IDE of choice. And IntelliJ, they've just launched their brand new theme, which currently it's in beta mode. And maybe by the time that you watch this video, it might not be in beta, but it really doesn't matter if I use the new UI theme or the old UI theme, because it's just coding, okay? So when I run some code, it's going to be the exact same place. So all you have to do is just look for the play button, and it's basically the same place. It's quite easy for you to see. Then the other thing is I'm doing a giveaway, and I'm giving you the IntelliJ license, so the ultimate, for 3 months. I can't even say 3 months. So for 3 months, right? And all you have to do is follow me on my LinkedIn profile. Also, there's a brand new group which you'll basically find a link in the description of this video within LinkedIn. So we have a LinkedIn group now, and also join Discord, because that's where, if you have any questions about the course, you should post your questions. Okay, so Discord is a very active community, and you should be part of it. So join all those three. So follow me, not join, but follow me, join the LinkedIn group, and also Discord, and you should get your license. Cool. This is pretty much it. I'm so excited. Let's get started. If you want to follow and code along with me, which I think is the best way of you to learn all of this stuff that I'm about to teach you, go ahead and clone the repository, which you can find the link in the description of this video. So within the repository, click on code, and then in here, you are able to basically clone using SSH. You can see some description about, basically this is part of the curriculum, which is over 50 hours, and we are adding more content to it. So also you can look into the commits in here, which I'm going to show you which one you have to commit in order to follow along. So go ahead and pretty much just clone. So click on code, grab this link, and then open up your terminal. So in here, I've got my terminal open, and you can literally clone this to anywhere within your file system. So if I say pwd, you can see that this is users/Amigoscode. And right now, let me just go to desktop. So cd and then desktop. And in here, I'm going to say git and then clone and then paste the link. Awesome. So now it's actually cloning, and there we go. Next, let's open up this repo with IntelliJ. For this course, I'm going to use IntelliJ Ultimate, and it's by far the best IDE for Java development, and also for full stack, it's amazing. So luckily for you, I've got a coupon code for 3 months, which you can basically use and have access to all the features. So here, if you navigate to this website, which I'm going to leave the link in the description of this video, and if you click on download, you'll see that IntelliJ, basically they have 2 versions. They have the community as well as the ultimate. So this one is a paid version, which I'm going to give you access for 3 months, as I said. Now, the best way for installing IntelliJ is not directly, and you should do it through. So if you click on developer tools, And in here, you should see the Toolbox app. So basically, this is the best way for you to manage all of your JetBrains IDEs. So this basically allows you to upgrade easily, install, rollback, and downgrade, and all that good stuff. So basically, go and install the Toolbox app, and then you'll have access to, and then you'll be able to install IntelliJ. Let me show you. So in here, I already have the Toolbox app, which is available in here. So if I click on Toolbox, you can see that this opens up the toolbox. And if I click on Tools, you can see that I do have IntelliJ Community, I've got IDEA, and there's updates which I need to basically do. And you can see all the other ones in here. But the one I want you to install is this one in here. And I'm going to leave the instructions on how to get the 3 months license. Next, let's go ahead and open up IntelliJ. All right, so in here, if I open up IntelliJ, you should be presented with a screen that looks like this. So let's open up our project. So here, I'm going to click on Open, or if you want, you can get from VCS. So you just paste the GitHub link and basically just clone the repo. Also, if you have the exact same version, you can enable the brand new UI, which is, I think, in still beta mode, which I'm not going to use. So I just want to make sure that basically all the recordings are with the same IDE. But if you want to use their brand new UI, feel free to do so. It looks really good, actually. So here, I'm going to click on Open. And then within my desktop, this is where I've got the folder. So open the folder, and all I want you to do is to open the root. So this is a mono repo where we have the front end, the back end, and whatnot. So just open. There we go. And you can see now there's a few things about what's new about IntelliJ. So I've just updated. And if I close this, there's also the README. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to basically load this because we found the Maven build script. There we go. So just give it a second, and I'm going to cancel this plugin here. And there we go. So if you manage to get this right here, where you see the folder in here and it looks like this, and if you expand, you should see CI, GitHub, gitignore, backend, frontend. Within the frontend, we have Angular, React. So if you see all of this in here, you've successfully managed to open the project with IntelliJ. Cool. The next thing that I want you to do is, if you open up Git in here, you should see that there's basically all of these commits in here. And what I want you to do is to check out the point before the file upload. So here, I think, so this is the README stuff that I've done. And then this is the React. And then in here, so basically I think it's this one right here. So basically what I want to do at this point, so I want to check out the code before I implement the file uploads. So you see S3 file uploads, the commit before it, not this one because this one is a branch, but before it, enroll to enroll. So basically 2 L's to 1 L. So basically right click. And then what I want you to do is to check out revision. So basically we're going to check out to this point. So check out, and there we go. So I'm also going to leave the command. So in case you want to check out using the terminal or command line, what you do is, so here I'm going to right click, and we should be able to copy the revision number just like that. And if I hide this and in here, so basically it's just downloading a few things. Let this finish. And you can see the revision in here actually. So the reason why I'm doing this is so that you can follow along. Awesome. So here we can open the terminal and you can see that this is the revision. Now, if I say git checkout and then main, you can see that I went back from this revision to main, right? Now I can say git checkout and then paste the revision. So basically this long number in here, press enter. So this is the exact same thing. Have a look. Now the head is at enroll to enroll. So I'm going to leave this command as well, so that if you want to do it this way, you can do it. But this will be the starting point for us. In order to successfully run the application, you need to install Docker, and basically Docker is just a fancy way of you basically running anything that you want locally without having to do any setup whatsoever. So if you want to learn more about Docker, I have a course on Docker, and Docker is a must these days if you are serious about becoming a software engineer, or if you're a software engineer and you don't know much about Docker, then you must know about Docker right now. So go and install Docker. And once Docker is installed, you should see something called Docker Desktop. So in here, if I click on this button in here, so open the dashboard, and you should see something like this. So let's take this command in here. So if this is the first time that you run Docker, just take this right here. So this command, copy and open up your terminal. And what we're going to do is just paste that command, and this will verify that we have Docker installed. So basically it's just going to run a hello world or getting started container. You can see that it says enable to find. It's going to do something like this, and it's going to basically run and then finish. So if the command ran and executed successfully, what I want to do is open up Docker Desktop, and you should see this right here, which is a brand new container. Cool. And this guy here, it's running on port 80. And if you want to see the exact same details through the terminal, you could just type Docker and then PS. So here basically is the same information. So you have one container right here. So basically port 80 on the host mapping to port 80 inside of the container. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to open your web browser, and together let's type local and then host. Literally just local host. Press enter, and you should get this right here up and running. So if you manage to get this page right here, it means that everything is working as expected. Now, let me destroy this container. So in here, back to Docker Desktop, we can basically delete the container through here or through the terminal by saying docker rm and then let's say -f4, so we don't have to stop the container, get the container ID and then paste and then enter. And you should get the ID back. And now within Docker Desktop, no containers are running. And if I try to access the same page, so this one here before, so if I reload, you can see that the site cannot be reached. Cool. So if you've done all of this, congratulations, you are on your way in terms of learning Docker. Next, let's go ahead and get the database up and running for our application using Docker. Cool. In order to get the database up and running, for this course, we're going to use Docker as it's the world's most advanced open source relational database, and it's quite popular, and it's one that I recommend on my courses. So let's go ahead and get this database up and running with Docker. So within IntelliJ, if I just hide this, you should see that there's a file called dockercompose.yaml. And in this file, this is the YAML definition for a couple of containers. So here I've got one called DB, and this is for the database. Then I also have another one for the API. So this is the API that we build in the course and then we containerize. And the idea is that we can just use this Docker Compose file and then get the entire stack up and running. Also, we have the front end with React here as well. Cool. And if you want to learn more about all of this, as I said, check out the Docker course where I teach all of this. So for now, what I want you to do, and this is very important, let's get rid of the API in here. So this service, so I'm going to collapse this as well as React. So we don't need none of this. and I don't want this to cause us any issues. So I just want us to be able to have the database up and running, because this is what our Spring Boot application will need when we run it locally. Cool. So now make sure that you have this exact same file as is, and I'm going to leave this under the description of this video so that you could just copy and paste. But one thing to bear in mind is, have a look, the Amigoscode is the user and the password in here is password. So this is what the Spring Boot application uses to connect to this database. Cool. Next, let's open up the terminal. And within the terminal, what we're going to do is we're going to cd into the full stack folder. So here I'm within the desktop. So cd full stack professional. And now if I type ls, you should see that we have the docker compose.yaml. If I say cat docker compose.yaml, you can see that this is the file that I've just showed you with one service, which is the database. Awesome. Now, what I want you to do is simply to say docker compose and then up dash and then d. So this is Docker, and then within Docker there's another compose tool, and basically allows us to run containers based off the YAML definition. And D is for detach mode. Press enter, and you can see that for me this was super quick, but for you, maybe if you're running this first time, it should take some time to pull the images, or to pull this Postgres image, in fact. Nice. Now go ahead and type docker and then ps. If you type docker ps and you have one container, it's fine, right? And the container is up and running. But if you use Docker before and you have multiple containers, look for the one called in here Postgres. So names, post, and then gres. Also, there's this nice environment variable. So here, I think it's format. So I think, let me just say export and then format, which I'm going to leave under the description of this video. Press that, and then I can say docker ps -- format, and now this gives me the output formatted nicely like this instead of like this. And here you can see the ID, the name, the image, the port. So currently it's localhost 5332 mapping to 5432 inside of the container, the command created, and the status, which basically up about a minute ago. Now, what I want you to do is, let's take either the name or the ID and say docker logs, and take the name or the ID, press enter, and in here you should see this exact same output that says database is ready to accept connections. Awesome. If you've managed to get this far, congratulations. If not, let us know within Discord. Otherwise, next, let's go inside of this container and create a database called customer, which our backend needs in order to run. Within IntelliJ, if I close the Docker Compose YAML for now, and let us open the backend folder, src, main, Java. In here you have the main class. So if you try to run this main class in here, or you can run it through here, or right click, run, this should fail in here. There we go. And it fails because the database customer does not exist. So let's create that within our database. So you've got two options. You can connect using the database client in here with IntelliJ, or through the terminal. So let me do it through the terminal. So within the terminal, if I type docker ps, you can see that we have one container which is running, and this is the database. So let's take the database name or ID, say docker exec -it, just like this, paste the name or the ID for our container, and then say sh. Now we are within this container, and this basically is just a Linux box. If I type ls, you can see the Linux file structure. So what we're going to do is type PSQL. So this is the official CLI client for Postgres. And here say -U Amigoscode. So this is the user. And also let's connect to, so say -d. And by default, we should have a database called post and then gress. Press enter, and you can see that we are inside. At this point, if I press Ctrl L, it just makes some room for us there. And if I type \L, you can see that this lists the databases. And currently there's 4. So Amigoscode, Postgres, template 0, and template 1. So what we're going to do is, let's just say create, and then database. And in here, we're going to create a database called customer. And then make sure that you have a semicolon, enter. And if you have the exact same output, so if this comes back create database, it means that it was successfully created. And also, if I type \L once more, clear the screen, press enter. Now you can see that we have the customer database inside. So let's basically connect to customer. So say \C and then customer. And now if I type / and then D, enter, there's no relations. Let's open up IntelliJ. And if we try to run the application once more, so this time it should just work. There we go. And we have a user in here. So insert into customer, age, email, blah, 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 values, and the application is up and running. Awesome. Next, let's go back to the database. And if I type / and then D once more, now you can see that we have few relations. We have the table called customer, the sequence, and flyaway schema history, as well as a table. So if I say select and then star from and then customer, if I press enter, so make sure you have semicolon there, you can see that we have this customer right here. Now let me say \T and then run the exact same command again. Or sorry, not T. So let me just toggle it off, and I think it's \X. Yes, expand the display on. So let me just run the exact same command. So select star from customer, and you can see how the data now comes this way. And this is our customer, ID1, that's the name, the password, obviously in here is encoded, and gender male, and the age 98. So if you've managed to get this far, congratulations. Next, let me go ahead and press Ctrl D to come out of PSQL, and then Ctrl D once more to come out of the container, and we are good to go. If you've managed to get the backend up and running, congratulations. Otherwise, let me know if you are facing any issues so that you can follow along. Catch me on the next one. In order to get the front end up and running, either React or Angular, what we need to do is to install Node.js. So this is very important in order to run our front end locally. So download either the long-term support or the current. It doesn't matter because it should just work. Once you have Node installed, open up the terminal, and within the terminal, so if I clear the screen in here, Ctrl L, I'm going to say cd and then navigate to front end. And let's first do React. There we go. And in here, I want to type npm. So just type npm, and you should see that this will come back and say, hey, you want to do something. These are the usages, right? So it means that we have successfully installed Node.js. And when you install Node.js, it comes with npm, which is the package manager. So now what we're going to do is say npm and then I. And in fact, before I do that, if I type ls, have a look. So these are the files and folders we have. But when we type npm I, or install is the same thing. This will go and download all dependencies, and you can see that added 269 packages. So here, let's just type ls once more, and now you can see that we have node modules. Let me clear the screen, and now to run the React frontend, just type npm and then run and then dev. Awesome. So you can see that it says this is actually running on localhost 5173. So let's just take this URL and open up Chrome, new tab, paste URL, press enter, and you should see this beautiful UI. Awesome. If you want to log in, to grab the credentials, open up IntelliJ, and remember when we started the backend, you should see in the logs this email. So just take the email, go back, and then paste that. And for the password, it's going to be password. And then log in, and you can see that it works. Click on customers, and you should see that we have one customer in here, and we can update, we can delete the customer if we want. And also let's try to add a new customer. So here, let's just say Jean, and then Jean at Amigoscode.com. Let's say she's 22. Password is going to be password, and then gender, female, submit. You can see that she's added in here, and let's try to log in with Jean. Sign out. This will be Jean at Amigoscode.com. The password is password, log in, and now we are signed in with Jean. Customers, and we can see everyone again. Awesome. If you've managed to do all of this, congratulations. You are on your way in terms of building the functionality to upload pictures with AWS. Cool. Let's begin our journey in terms of building all of this. The very first place that I always start when I have to basically use an SDK or an API or basically implement literally any feature is by looking at the documentation and then take it from there. So in here, I'm within the AWS SDK for Java documentation. So this is the official documentation from AWS. And in here, basically, we learn how to integrate AWS services with Java. So you can find the link under the description of this video for this documentation, but here I know that for a fact that version 1 is actually deprecated, and there's a new version which is 2. There's also a migration guide, and in here, so we have the API reference, and here we have the developer guide. So let's look into developer guide, and this should gives us more or less an idea of how to get up and running. So on the left, you can see that we have, a get started tutorial, some information about the SDK, and setup, SDK features, security, documentation history, and whatnot. So let's click on get started tutorial, and here you can basically follow this tutorial if you want to get up and running with this SDK. But in here, so basically if I scroll down, this is a Maven project. You can see the pom.xml, and in here you can see that they have the dependency, and then basically they use the SDK like so. And yeah, so also under setup in here, they also have a more detailed guide, I think, with Maven and possibly Gradle as well, and how to migrate from version 1 to version 2, so on and so forth. So in here, so let's basically click on build steps. So I want to set up with Apache Maven, and actually let's look into, right, so this actually, it's using the SDK. So in here, what I really want to take from is the dependency. So if I scroll down, I can see, have a look, declare the SDK as a dependency. So here, this is the version in here. And if I scroll down, so this is the dependency management, which we are not using. but instead we're going to take the dependency right here. So the S3 dependency like so. So let's basically command C on this guy and then open up IntelliJ. And within IntelliJ, open up pom.xml, and in here, let me put this full screen. And under dependencies in here, I'm going to basically add it as the last one. Now here, we also have to add the version. So here, version, and the version as it stands, I'm going to use 2.20.26. And if I go back in here, have a look, 2.20, I think there's a newer version actually as I'm speaking, but basically I would say try and use the same version as I have, or probably if this is not 3, so basically 3, which means a major version upgrade, then everything should just work. Cool. Let me go back to IntelliJ, and you could take this right here, so this version as a property, but I'm going to leave it as is. And let me just click on load Maven changes. And this is pretty much it. Next, let's go ahead and learn how to use this SDK. Cool. We have the Maven dependency, and let me collapse setup. In here, use the SDK. So if I click on it, you can see that they give us basically an example on how to use it. But one thing that we need to make sure that we have first is here. If I click on provide temporary credentials. So before making a request to AWS, we need temporary credentials so that we can use the services provided by AWS. Here we have temporary credentials. So if I click on it, they basically show us what we need to do. Then we have default credential provider chain. So this is when you basically are initializing the service within Java. Then this is where the credentials are retrieved from. So first is from Java properties, then environment variables, web identity token, shared credentials, ECS container, and then here EC2 instance Enrol, which later you'll see how we're going to use this. But what we're going to first use is temporary credentials. So here, if I click on it, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to retrieve the credentials from AWS console, and then we're going to store them in a location called here. So under home.aws and then credentials. And this is mainly for local development, right? Then we're going to add the access key ID, the secret access, and I think for us, this should be more than enough. And here you can follow, details on how to do it, but don't worry, I'm going to show you how to do this. So let's go ahead together and open up the AWS console. And within the console, navigate to your username. So in here, Amigoscode in my case. Then navigate to security credentials. And within this page in here, you should see access management on your left. Click on users. And in here, if you remember correctly, before we added Amigoscode GitHub Actions. So now what we're going to do is we are going to add a new user. And here I'm going to name this user as Amigoscode. And here I'm not going to provide access to the console. So this will be programmatic access only. Click on next. And for the user group, what you could do is you could say, right, so this user is only allowed to use the S3 service, for example. But in my case in here, I'm going to use the admin. So I want to give full control to all services within AWS to Amigoscode. So that user will have full control. And also you can set permission boundaries, but we don't want to do that. And if you don't see admin in here, you can create a group. So let's just see if I create a group, and here you can see administrator here provides full access. So basically you then select admin and then just say admin in here, and you should have the exact same group as I do. So this is the admin in here, but let me just show you, for example, S3. So in here, so you can see that these are, so here, S3 full access. Maybe you just want to limit the user to have access to S3 and that's it, or S3 read only, that's it, right? So in my case in here, I'm going to give full access, as I said. Let me just collapse that and select admin in here, and let's click on next. And you get a summary in here. So the username is Amigoscode and the group is admin in here. No tags, create the user. Awesome. So now that we have the user, next what we have to do is issue the credentials for this user. Previously, when you created the user, you would get issued the credentials, but now we have to do this on a separate step. So click on the user that you just created. So in my case, Amigoscode. And then what you need to do is under security credentials, click on it. And in here, if I scroll down, we should have access keys. So access keys to send programmatic calls to AWS from the AWS CLI, tools, SDK, or API calls. So a maximum of 2 keys, active or inactive at a time. So let's create the access key. And in here, what I want to be able to is to access through the CLI in here, right? So there's no local code, there's no application running on compute service at this point. So we're not going to do this. And you shouldn't really do this actually. You should use IAM roles, which I will show you later. And in here, so the application is not running outside AWS. So in here, what I want is local code. And you plan to use this access key to enable application code in local development environment to access your AWS account. So this is exactly what we want. And in here, so let's just basically say, I understand the above recommendation and click next. In here, if you want, you can basically add a tag, which I'm not going to, and then generate access key. Cool. At this point, you see that we have the access key as well as secret access key. And we have some best practices on how to access the key itself. So never store the key in plaintext, disable access when no longer needed, enable least privilege permissions, which we haven't done. We just, said that the role itself or the user is an administrator, and rotate access keys often. So in here, what we need to do next is take the access key as well as secret key and then store them within our local machine. And I'm going to show you where next. So in order to store these values, the access key as well as the secret access key, if I go to the documentation in here, so under use the SDK, use temporary credentials, there should be a section here. So basically set up a local credentials file for temporary credentials. So here, basically what we have to do is we have to get something like this under the home directory .aws and then a file called credentials. So if I open up my terminal, and within my terminal in here, just basically type cd and then tilde or just cd, and this, if I say pwd, you can see that this is users and then /Amigoscode. Now under it, so if you don't have a folder called AWS, just go ahead and create a folder like so. So say make dir.aws. Okay. So I already have this folder. So I'm going to say cd to change directory to AWS. And in here, if I type ls, you can see that we have credentials. So this is a file. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this with VI and then credentials. Press enter. And in here, I do have one profile, which is the default. So basically have this. So open square brackets, say default, close square brackets, and then have AWS access key ID. And then this should be the ID. And then do the same for AWS secret access key, and then the access key that was given to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically press I in here, and I'm going to press, or actually escape. I'm going to press J to go down, W to word, and then press basically D, and then W to delete basically the word, and press I. Now in here, I'm going to paste the access key ID. So back to the console, the access key. So this guy here, copy. And then here, I'm going to paste. I'm going to press escape, J. And here, I'm going to go back a word and then press D, W. And basically it deletes the secret access key, I for insert. And let's basically paste the secret access key. Now here, I'm going to show you the value, and that's because after this video, I'm going to regenerate the access key as well as the secret, because otherwise anyone with these credentials can have full control or full access on my account, and I don't want that to happen. So these values here, they should be kept secret. So never show them to no one. So here I'm going to copy and then go back and then paste. And you can find the contents for this file under the description of this video so that you can just copy and paste. But let's press escape and then colon and then WQ. So we want to write and quit. Cool. So if I press if I type cat and then credentials, and you can see that these are the credentials that we just copy and pasted. And this should be it. If you have any questions, drop me a message. Otherwise, catch me on the next one. Cool. Back to the documentation. In here, we have the credentials out of the way. Now, SDK features. So I'm not going to show you basically the features. And here, work with AWS services. If I open this up, in here, have a look. We've got a bunch of services. And the one that we are interested is Amazon Simple Storage, or simply S3. So you can also work with Dynamo, EC2, IAM, Athena, Cognito, Lambda, Amazon Poly, SQS, Amazon Translate, and basically all of these other services in here. So the one that we are interested is the S3, Simple Storage Service. So basically this section provides a guide on how to get up and running with S3. But let me just show you. So S3, if you don't know much about S3, but S3 basically object storage built to retrieve any amount of data from anywhere. Now here, so 5 gigs of standard storage for 12 months with the AWS free tier, which is way more than enough for what we need, because we're just going to store pictures. And here you can scale storage resources. You can store across storage classes, you can protect your data, and it's easy to manage data at any scale and more. So here they've got a diagram on how it works, which I'm going to let you basically go through it, but literally analytics data, log files, application data, videos, pictures, backup and archival, literally you name it, you can store anything within Amazon S3. So basically, all you need is just a bucket. So they call it bucket, where you can just put your files in it or your objects. So you can see like the use cases, but it's very popular and it's one of the services that you should know how to use within AWS, because now we store data more than ever before. Next, let's go ahead and learn how to have the configuration for our S3 client that will enable us to use Amazon S3 programmatically. Cool. Within the documentation working with Amazon S3, in here they give us some code snippet on how to get up and running with S3. So let's together take this piece of code and open up IntelliJ. And within IntelliJ, let's open a project, and within the backend folder, let's open up the main Java. And in here, under the root package, let's create a new and then class. And here we're going to say S3 dot. So this is the name of the package. And the name of the file will be S3 and then config. Just like that. So you can't create a package like this. So press enter, and you can see that we have the package in here and the class called S3 and then config. Now this class in here, so let's just basically annotate this with @ and then configuration, and is going to serve as a means for us to create the client. So here, let's say public and then S3. So S3 and then client, not config, but S3 client, just like this, from software, Amazon, AWS SDK services, S3 client. So this is the interface in here. And I'm going to say basically S3 client. And inside here, I'm going to paste the code that I've just copied. So just like this. Now, I don't think that we need the endpoint override in here, so we don't need that. And also, let's remove the force path style. So I think all we need is the client, provide the region, and then say build, and then we have the client. Now the region, this is very important. So whatever region which is closest to you and where you want your bucket to reside, just choose the right region. So in my case, let me just import class, and this will be, so basically EU, and then I think it's EU and then underscore west 1. Now this right here, if I press command and then navigate into it, so this is just a string like so, right? So what I'm going to do, in fact, is I'm going to take this string, close the region class, and in here I'm going to have private, and then I want to say string, and then AWS, and then region, and don't say final there, say @ and then value, and within the value in here, so have $, and then curly brackets, and AWS, and then dot, and then region. So the reason why I'm doing this is so that you can basically just change the region from within the configuration file. So here, then we just say region, and then value, or actually region of, and then the string is AWS, and then region. Cool. So now we need to define this guy in here. So let's just open a project, and within project, open resources, application.yaml, and then literally anywhere. So here, I'm just going to do it here. So AWS : and then inside, I'm going to say region : and then paste the string. So EU West 1. So choose the right region for your application. Now back to the config. So in here, we are done and dusted with the region. The last thing that we have to do is return the client, just like that. And we're good to go. Finally, let's annotate this with @ and then bean, just like that. And now we have the client in here. Later, we're going to do some extra work in here because we need a second implementation that will serve for basically running the application without us having to connect to S3 directly. So maybe we don't want to use the credentials to AWS. And in fact, we shouldn't have those credentials locally. So we're going to have a fake implementation that will store files to our local file system. And also it will be used for testing. For now, this is okay. And later we will change this. This is pretty much it. Catch me on the next one. Now that we have S3 config, let's together create the S3 and then service. So here I'm going to say S3 and then service. And this class right here, so we need to annotate this with add and then service. And this class will have two methods. It will have a method to upload or to basically store objects, and one to download objects. So let's together here basically say that we want to have the client. So the client now allows us to interact with S3. So private final S3 and then client that we've just configured. And let's add this to constructor. And now in here, we can basically have a method to put or to store objects to a specified bucket. Within the documentation for S3 in here, if I scroll down, they have topics on buckets, operations, and then object operations. So here you can create a bucket. So through Java code in here, and basically what you do is just this, right? But we're not going to do this because you should never create buckets through code, and you should have a team or maybe the infrastructure team, the DevOps team manage the infrastructure for you, i.e. creating those resources through code, i.e. infrastructure as code with something like Terraform or Pulumi or CloudFormation. So in our case, let's look into object operations, and I'll show you how to create a bucket in a second. But in here, upload an object. So here they give you the actual code on how to upload an object. So here, so we have the bucket, then all you do is you just have a put request and job done. So what we're going to do is let's take this, go back, and in here, let's have a method. So I'm going to say public and then void and then put object. And we're going to fill in these in a second. But so here, let's just paste the code. Let me put this full screen. Let's import put object request. And here we have to pass the bucket name as well as the key. So these will come from, so if I extract this to a parameter, so that will be the bucket name, and the key will also be coming from the parameter, just like that. And what we need to do in order to store to the bucket is invoke the S3 client dot and then put object and then pass the object and then request in here, and more important, the actual data. So what we want to store. So what we want to store is the request body. So here, just say request body and then from bytes and then the actual bytes, right? Or you could just say the file, for example, here, right? As a byte array. So this guy here, let's extract this to a variable, and this is pretty much it. So you can see that this is quite easy. So we have this method that allows us to store files to a specific bucket with a given key and the file in here, which is a byte array. Cool. Next, let's implement the download functionality, which basically is just getting the byte array back. So in here, I'm within the official documentation for S3, and basically this is what we've just done with put. Now, what I want to do is to have the ability of, and also you can upload in parts using multi-part upload, which we don't need. So usually you do that for large files. So here, download object, have a look. It's so simple, and all you need is basically just this, right? So let's just take literally everything, and then within IntelliJ, let's have the method here. So I'm going to say public, and then here this will be byte. So this is what we get back, and right here, so we store the file and we get it back, right, as a byte array. So here I'm going to say get and then object, or you could even say download file, but let's just say get object, and here we need to pass the actually let's just use IntelliJ to generate those. So paste the code in here, import class, and the bucket name here, I'm going to press option command and then P for parameter, the same for key. There we go. And in here, so instead of S3, this will be S3 client, or we could even just say S3. Actually, it's a better name, right? So S3, just like that. So S3, S3, S3. I could use refactoring, but that's fine. So S3 get object, and this is it, right? Now, what I want to do actually, so if you look into the return type for this is a response input stream. So I'm going to say response, right? So response or res in here. From the response, we can actually get the bytes, right? So here we just say object. So here we just say res dot, and then have a look, read all bytes. So this in here, we need to basically encapsulate within try catch. So here we have the bytes. So here, let's just surround this with try and then catch. And basically, in case that there's nothing there, then it just throws an exception, right? So throw and then new runtime exception, and then the exception in here. Now, obviously, if you want, you can add some logging in here to know exactly which bucket and what key that you basically failed to look at. But for our case, I'm just going to leave this as is, and that's it. So now we can say return and then bytes. Or if you prefer, we can inline this just like that, which looks much better. And this is the implementation to getting an object. If you have any questions, drop me a message. Otherwise, catch me on the next one. Cool. Before we write any more code, what I want to do is I want to make sure that this indeed does work. So in order for us to test this, what we need to do first is to write some code that uses these two methods, but also create the bucket itself. So let's create a bucket. So within AWS console, go to the main page in here. And what I want you to do is search for S and then 3. And here, scalable storage in the cloud, also added to favorites. And now it's right in here. So click on it. And in here, you can see that I do have a couple of buckets in here. So don't worry too much about these buckets in here. But what we want to do is to create a brand new bucket. So just click on create bucket. And if I put this bigger, so in here, so bucket name in here, just make sure that you type anything. So in my case, let's just say FS for full stack dash and then Amigos and then code. dash and then customer, right? So basically this is mainly for customers. And here, let's just say test. Maybe you want to have one for a different environment. So maybe development, staging, production. So let's just basically keep this name as is. Also keep note of this name. So I'm just going to copy and in here, so AWS region. So just make sure you select a region, which is the one where you are deploying your services. So in my case, EU Ireland, i.e. EU West 1. And I want to leave everything as default. No need to change anything. And right at the bottom, create a bucket. Cool. Now in here, we should see the bucket. So where it is. So here, FS Amigoscode customer test. So FS for full stack. If I click on it, you can see that there are no objects. And obviously we can upload the files manually if we want to, but I'm going to show you through code in just a second. Cool. Next, let's write some code to test that we can indeed upload files to S3. Okie dokie. So we have the S3 bucket in here, and which is this one actually. And basically what we want to do is within IntelliJ, we want to write some code that will basically upload a file to the bucket. So basically we just are testing things, and we haven't done this one here, nor the role, nor storing to the database, and these will come later. So let's open up IntelliJ, and within IntelliJ, let's open up the main. So here, open up the main method, and within main, let's basically, I'm gonna comment all of this. So eventually I'll put this back, or let me just say, extract this to a method, and here, create random and then customer. Cool. So let me just comment this, and within the runner method here itself, what we're going to do is let's basically have the S3 service. So S3 and then service, just like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to say S3 service dot and then put object. The bucket name has to be the exact same name of the bucket. So if I go back, which is FS Amigoscode customer test, and then paste that. So that's the bucket name. And also in here, so let me just put this on a new line. Also, we need to pass the key, right? So here, I'm going to say foo. So that's the key. And finally, the byte. So what we want to upload. So in our case, let's just say hello and then world, and then store this as a byte array. And literally we can store anything into the bucket. Cool. So basically this here stores, and we should be able to get the item back. So here, let's basically say S3 service dot and then get object. The bucket name is the same. So the bucket name is the same, like that. The key is also foo, the same. And this is it, right? So basically this now is bytes. So now if I extract this to a variable, this is the object. So I'm going to say object. So object like that. And what we're going to do is south, and then hooray, and then plus, and here I'm going to say new and then string, and then pass the object inside. Cool. So this is how we turn a byte array into a string. Now, if we run this, we should see that we get back foo. We should see that we get hello world back. Let's run it. So here, right click, run main, give it a second. So it's going to start, and hooray, have a look. So we have hello and then world. And this means that we've managed to upload a file into S3. Let's check it out. So before we had no objects. Now, if I reload this page in here, you can see that, ta-da, in a second. Why is it slow? My internet is so rubbish. Seriously. Cool, have a look. So this is foo. And basically we can download this. So click on it and you can download if you want, but inside is going to say hello world, which is what you saw in the console. And to be honest, this is it. And also the path, right? So basically this is the bucket and this is the key itself. Now, if you want, you can store these, as a folder structure. So you can say / and then images and then foo.png or .txt, whatever, right? So for us, I just stored within the root of the bucket itself. Now, what I want to show you is within .aws, if I say vi in here and then credentials, and then here, if I go to the end of this file and then delete, so I'm going to press X. So delete A, escape WQ. And if we try to run our code again, and in here, I actually have the AWS plugin installed, which tells me, right, so this has an invalid AWS connection. And if I show you the plugin, so I think plugin and then installed, I think, and I think it's this one, AWS Toolkit. So it will basically tell you whether there's something wrong with your configuration or not. So go ahead and install it, and also you can see, so you can manage buckets and upload and download from buckets as well. So here, I'm just going to say okay. And what I want to show you, in fact, is if I reload the application, this will fail. So give it a second and boom, have a look. An exception has happened. And if we look into the error, so in here, scroll up or actually down, let's just try and read the error. So here, have a look, right? The request signature we calculated does not match the signature you provided. Check your key and signing method and have a look. 403. So you can see that how it's important that you have the credentials configured correctly, because otherwise you won't be able to access the resources within AWS. And also our key is admin, which means you can do anything, right? But if we restrict it and then try to access a resource which the key is not allowed, it will also fail. Awesome. Let me hide this and go back to the terminal and VI credentials. So in here, so if I go to the end, say I, so this was actually TA and then escape WQ. And this is it. Let's run once more. There we go. And you can see that reloaded credentials. And in here, so the key, let's just say here, for example, foo. And then let's just say foo /bar and then / and then Jamila, for example, right? So this right here is the key. And if you see the result of this, so let's just run it once more. There we go. So we have hello world, which was stored. If I open up the bucket and here, let me just go back. Now check this out. So foo is a folder Bar is yet another folder. And inside we have Jamila, which is the file that contains hello world. This is pretty much it. Catch me on the next one. Before we move into the controller and add business logic, what I want to do is I want to basically have this bucket name as configuration. So open up application.yaml, and in here you saw that we have AWS and then region. Let's have S3 in here, and then within S3 we're going to have buckets, just like that. And here we're going to have a bucket in here called customer, and then here, and then in here we're going to have the basically name itself, right? So the idea is that you can have different profiles, and you'll see this later, and you can change the bucket name without having to change code. So that is the benefit of doing this. Now let's go to project, and in here create a new class under S3, and we're going to call it S3 and then buckets. Press enter. Here name this as add and then configuration, and also add and then configuration properties, and this will have a prefix of AWS dot S3 dot and then buckets. So don't worry about this in here, but this right here, AWS dot S3 dot buckets, is AWS dot S3 dot and then buckets. And then we can have these as fields, or actually the key as field, and then whenever we invoke the getter, we get the bucket itself. So let's go back, and here we want to have a field, so private, don't say final here, just say private string, and then customer. And customer here is the same as this one here, right? Then let's basically have the constructor, so add constructor, and actually I don't even think we need constructor here, so there's no need for constructor. So just have the getter and setter, right? So here getter and setter, and job done. Now what we can do is we can take S3 buckets, go to main, and instead of saying this, we could just inject basically S3 buckets like that, import that, and now I can just say, so instead of this nonsense, I can just say S3 buckets dot and then get customer. So let's basically try and reload and see whether this works. We should get hello world back, and yes, we do. Cool. So you can see that this is a much better approach, because later we can have a different file, so application-dev, for example, with a different bucket name, and the same with the region. And basically you can take this and just change it according to your bucket, and it should just work. That's another advantage as well. Cool. This is pretty much it. I think I'm going to, let's just take this here and extract to a method, and then test bucket upload and download. And we're not going to do this anymore. Let's just uncomment the create random user, and let's get rid of the service as well as the buckets. But be aware that if you want to use them, you just have to import them in here, right? Because this is expecting them, right? So this is pretty much it. Let me just put this full screen so you see the entire code. If you have any questions, drop me a message. Otherwise, next, let's go ahead and create the controller and then the service, and start connecting the dots. Cool. So I know that from within IntelliJ, we can run the application and we can store images in here, which is nice. This bit here, this will be later. What I want to focus now is on the controller. So we want to expose an API endpoint to clients. And also we want to store the image associated with a customer. So let's first tackle the controller. So in here, open up project and then open customer controller. And in here, we're going to have two methods. So one to download and the other one to upload. So let's start with the upload. So in here, let's say public, and we're going to say void upload, and then customer profile, and then picture. And this in here will have the at and then path and then variable. So we need the customer actually in here. So path variable. Let me put this on a new line like so. This will be the customer and then ID. And you've seen this, which is basically the same thing as this one. And let's just take this, and in here, we're going to leave this. And in here, we're going to change this as post in here. So post and then mapping. And this will be / and then profile dash and then image. So let's just say profile image instead of picture. So profile image, and this in here will be the ID, which is an integer. So integer customer ID. And also what we want to receive is, so the way that we're going to receive the file is by receiving the multi-part file, and this will come as a request and then param. There we go. And this will be called file, and this will be a multi-part and then file. So make sure that it's the first one from Spring Framework Web Multi-Part, and here just call it basically multi-part file or just file if you want. Add a space in there, and this should be it. Now, because this is a file, we have to say that this method in here, so this at and then post mapping, and don't worry, we're going to add integration tests to make sure that everything works. So here we're going to say consumes, so this consumes media type dot and then multi-part and then form data value. Cool. Now at this point in here, let's just invoke customer service dot and then upload customer and then image. We're going to pass the customer ID as well as the file, just like that. Whoops. Not like that, but like this. And we'll create this in a second. So these two methods, and we'll create this method in a second. So the other method that we want is, let's just duplicate everything, and this will be get mapping. So get and then mapping. So here we can get rid of this all together, and note, so in here, note the value. Okay, so here no need for value, and the reason why we have value in there is because in here we have consumes as well. So this will be a get, basically to get the profile image. This will give us the byte array, just like that. I'm going to say get and then customer profile picture. No need for the multi-part in here. And let's just say return and then customer service dot and then get customer and then profile. Let's just say profile get customer profile image. There we go. We pass the customer ID and also upload customer profile image in there. Cool. So this should be it for these two methods within our controller. Next, let's tackle the service. Cool. In order for us to create these two methods within IntelliJ, let me just right click, show context action, create method, and it takes me straight into the method in here on the service class. Let me go back and do the same for get customer profile image, and there we go. Cool. So in here, this is going to be straightforward because we already have the service that allows us to upload and download. So scroll to the top in here, and what we need is to have the private final and then S3 and then service. So the one that we just used within the main class. Add this to constructor. Here, just a refactor. We'll go into the test in a second. And this is it. If I scroll down, so what we need to do in here is before we upload, we want to get the customer, or in fact, check whether the customer exists. So let's just copy some code, and we could basically extract this to a variable and basically say check if customer exists. Cool. Now we can reuse this. So here I can say check if customer exists, or let's just rename this to or. So refactor, rename, or, and then throw. There we go. So here pass the customer ID, and if this is the case, it's just gonna throw and execute the remaining lines. Now in here, what I want to do is I want to say S3 service dot, and then I want to put, so this allows us to upload the bucket. So the bucket will come from, let's scroll up in here, and private final, and then this will be S3 and then buckets, or we could just call it buckets, to be honest, so that we're not tied to S3, but that's fine. So here, scroll down, and where is it? So it's not even delete customer, it's this method right here, right? So here we want to get the bucket, so I'm going to say S3 buckets dot get customer, and the key will be under a folder called profile and then images / and then %s /% and then s dot, and then formatted, and we need to pass the customer ID, but also, right, so this will be customer ID so that we organize things by customer, and then here the ID for the picture. So the ID for the picture, so this will be uid dot and then random uid dot to string, and finally, so comma, so literally after this, so basically this closing parenthesis, so comma there, and the actual file. So basically say file dot and then get bytes. Now this here, this is a checked exception, so let's just surround with try and catch. So surround with try and catch, and I think this is pretty much it, right? So also let's extract this ID here. So we're going to extract this. So I'm going to say profile and then image and then ID, And let's put this out. And let's take this and put it outside like so. Cool. So if it fails, then we want to throw. So throw new, and then let's just say runtime exception. So at this point, I'm not worried too much about exceptions, but if you want to organize these exceptions and have better messages, you know that within, so if I show you, so exception, we have the, where is it? Default exception handler. And in here, you can basically handle all of the exceptions and have proper error codes. But for now, let's just get the meat of S3 and file uploads and downloads up and running. Cool. So let's go back to customer service, and this is it. Now, one thing that we have to do is, so upon completing this, so here, let's just have a to do. So to do, and then store, and then image. Yeah, so we'll do this in a second. Cool. Next, let's go ahead and implement get customer profile image. Cool. Now let's implement get customer profile image. And I've just basically need to make sure that this store image, so this to do here is to Postgres. So Postgres, and basically store profile, and basically store profile image ID. So basically profile image ID to Postgres or to DB. Cool. So now get customer in here. So what we want to do first is get the customer. So if I scroll up, you can see that this is how we get the customer. So here we're just copying code. I love copying code. So here we're going to paste that. We're going to get the customer, and that's it. Now we need to do a few things. So one is, so here I want to say to do, and we'll do this in a second. Check if profile image ID is empty or null, right? So if so, then we say that the customer doesn't have a picture associated with, and then what we do is we get the profile image ID. So here, let's just say string. And by the way, you are free to use var, for example, okay? So let's just use var here. So var, and then I'm gonna basically say profile image ID for now. So this will be to do as well in a second. So to do, and we can say return. So in here, return, and then S3 service dot, and then get object. So the bucket is S3 buckets dot get customer, and then the key. So the key is the same one that we stored. So where we put the object itself. So let's just paste that in here. And this is pretty much it. And then basically end this with semicolon, and basically this right here. So if I extract this to a variable, so you see, so this is the picture itself. So picture, right? Or image, or profile image, and then profile image. So it's easy for you to see this way. And yeah, so this is pretty much it. Obviously here we're not doing anything with customer, and that's because we are going to in a second, right? So this customer will contain, so I think, is it this customer? So select by ID, where do we perform the mapper? So let's have a look. Yeah, so I think we need to even map this customer in here. So yes, absolutely right. So here let's just say dot and then map, and then I think it's cost, and then I think it's customer row mapper. Cool. So then this will basically gives us a bunch of fields excluding the password and stuff that the client doesn't really need to know, right? So we'll touch on this next, but basically this is the implementation. Next, before we add the profile image to the database, let's quickly open up the test class, so customer service test, and you can see that this basically, it's complaining now. So let's just take this and basically put it on a new line like this. And what we need to do really, so quickly, is have a mock. So I'm going to say at, and then mock for the S3 service, so S3 service, and also a mock for the, so private, and then S3, and then buckets. Cool. So we're not even writing tests at this point because we're not done, but I just want to make sure that we fix the compilation error. Cool. So now that we have everything ready, next let's worry about storing the profile image ID to the database. Cool. Let's go ahead and shift our attention in terms of storing the profile image ID to the database. So we want to take basically this value in here and then store it against the customer that we upload, so that when we perform the get in here, we know exactly the key that needs to be assembled in order to download the latest profile image. So the first thing that we're going to do is open a project and open DB migration, and inside we're going to have a second migration. So I've just copied, or in fact, let's just right click new, and then do we have SQL in here? So SQL, no, I don't think I can search, but basically let's just say v and then 2 underscore underscore add underscore customer profile underscore image, and then .sql. Cool. So this is the SQL in here. And what we want to do in here is simple. So alter table customer. So this is the name of our table. And then we're going to say add and then column. And the column in here will be profile underscore image underscore ID. And in here, let's just say varchar and then 36. So I think that's the value or the length of uwidths. So here, don't even say not null, because that's not the case, right? And also this will actually fail because we have customers with empty profile pictures, right? So this should be something optional. And also, I don't want the profile image ID to have duplicates. So to mitigate against that, we just say alter and then table and then customer. And here we're going to say add and then constraint. And here we need to basically give a name. So this will be unique underscore and then profile image ID. And then just say unique. And then here, so let's basically put it on a new line, I think just like that. And basically we have parentheses, and where this is unique is on the profile ID, just like that. Cool. And this with semicolon, and we are good to go. Cool. Now let's open up the customer class. So here, customer and then class. So basically this class or this entity, and if I put this full screen, so in here, what we want to do is, so let's start with the column. So here, scroll down, and after the password, just say private, and then string, profile, and then image, and then ID. This will be a column, just like that. And here, this will be unique equals to true. And also we want to do the exact same thing as we've done with email. So here, let's just take this, comma, paste that, and then this will be the column that we've just created, which is this one. So where is it? This guy here. So the column, and what did we call it? So we said, let's just switch this around. So profile, image ID, underscore, and then unique. So let's take this, go back, and paste it here. And now we can basically match the schema with our entity, which is really nice. Also, so the column actually is this. So that's the column in here. So the same way that we've done with email. Nice. Now let's basically remove. So we're going to remove the toString in here. We're going to generate this once more. There we go. And also the equals and hash code. Let's just get rid of all of this. And before we create that, actually, let's just say get the image profile and also set the profile, right? And now at the bottom, let's just create the equals and hash code. So next, 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 and then next. And also toString. So to and then string. Select all of those. And possibly we don't need the password in here, but I'll just leave it. And this should be it. And also I want another constructor with basically all these. So name, oh actually, sorry, this one here. So ID, name, email, all the way to gender. So let's just take all of that. So we're going to have another constructor that basically takes the string and then profile image ID. And what we're going to do is, instead of setting these manually, we could just say this and then pass, basically, there's no auto completion, ID, name, email, and then password, age, gender, and finally we say this dot profile image ID equals to profile image ID. Awesome. This is pretty much it. Now let's try and start the application. So run main. Let's just run this and hopefully everything should just work. And it failed. So let's have a look why. Unable to create constraint on. So it says that the column profile image ID not found. Oh yes, so it's not found because, so basically this is the name. So profile image ID in here. So instead of actually not here but here. So I thought it was the SQL column in here, but no, it's the entity. So paste that and then run it. Fingers crossed, should just work. And hooray, you can see that it works, and we have an insert which comes from the main class. Awesome. This is pretty much it. Catch me on the next one. Cool. If I open a project, and remember we have the customer, not customer DTO, but customer DAO, and in here, So in here we have select all customers, and basically when we select customers, we're going to have to select the profile image ID as well. And also, if I open up, where is customer service? So customer service in here. So we need the ability, when we upload, we want to update the customer profile image ID with this new one, which is basically here, right? So let's start there and then fix the select. So within customer DAO, we're going to have a new method in here. And the reason why we have this interface is because we are using both JPA and JDBC. So here, let's together say void and then update customer profile image ID. In here, we're going to take the ID, right? So image profile or profile, and then image, and then ID, and then integer, and this is the customer ID. So customer ID, just like that. And let's fix in here, so customer ID, so that we are consistent. And now we need to implement basically customer JDBC data access service. We need to implement methods, update. So this one is straightforward and is as simple as saying var SQL, and the SQL within it is going to be update and then customer, and then here set, and then profile, and then image underscore ID equals to, and then a value basically. Cool. So we have basically the SQL statement in here, and all we have to do is just say return, or not even return because this is void. So we just have to say JDBC template dot and then update SQL, and here we have to pass the arguments, so profile image ID and customer ID. And there we go. You can see that this actually now is highlighted for whatever reason, which I'm not entirely sure. So let's just indent this, and hold on. So I think what I want is it that? It's weird. Is that the same level as this one? No. So why are you playing up IntelliJ? So this is pretty much it. Now for the other implementation, so customer DAO, then we have the JPA. So this is quite easy. So let's just implement methods, and in here what we are going to do, so let me just expand all. So what we're going to do is within the repository, so customer repository, we're going to have one method in here. So this will be at and then modifying, and at and then query. So we want to have a query, and the query for this will be, so I think this returns an integer, whether it worked or not, or the number of rows affected actually. So here we're going to, let's just say first set, and then profile, and then image ID. So we need to receive the string profile image and then ID, and then the customer, or actually integer customer ID. And within the query itself, so this is where we have basically JPQL, so update, and I think we can do it uppercase, so update, and then customer, and then C, set, and then C, so the customer dot profile image ID equals to question mark and then 1, where C dot ID equals to question mark and then 2. So this C right here is this one. So this is how it works. And then from here, we can basically access the attributes to perform our query. Cool. So now we have this query right here. So set, or we can even say update. Let's just say update profile image ID. And let's go back to the data access service, scroll down, and in here, we're going to say repository. So customer repository dot update profile image ID, passing the image ID and the customer ID. And this is it. We also need, so we have a third implementation, customer list, which at this point, I think we might just delete it altogether because we're not using this, right? So this is just a static list in here. So I'm going to leave it here just in case you want to play around. But in here, I'm going to say to do implement this. Cool. And let me just add an emoji here. And then this. All right, cool. So this is pretty much it. One last thing that we have to do is within the customer JDBC data, so this guy here, within the selects, we have to select basically the new column that we just added. And that's what we're going to do next. Now let's go ahead and open the customer JDBC data access service, which basically uses JDBC. And in here, when we select all customers, let's include our brand new column called, so if I show you the migration, so this is a new column. So let's just take this, Command C, go back and then paste that. Cool. Now I think we also need to select it here, comma, and then there. And so when we insert, we don't have to insert the new column. So also we can get rid of this right here. So we no longer need that. Or in fact, it's just because of this, right? So we can get rid of all of that. So we don't use that. Cool. So let me just scroll down. So exists, we don't need delete also. So at this point, I'm going to, oh, do you know what? Let me just leave the results there. Cool. So maybe for debugging purposes, but usually you wouldn't have these print line statements. So let's scroll down, update customer, all good. So in here also select user by and then email. We want to select the new column just like that. And we have this brand new method that we just added, update customer profile image ID. Now, what we want to do is the following. So we want to change. So if I show you, where is it? So we have the customer row mapper. So within customer row mapper, we have to change it slightly. So now here we need to include the new column. So here, say comma, and we're going to say rs dot, and then get string, and then paste the new column. Now remember, we have this new constructor. So this one here that we added. So that's the reason why we did this, so that we can also provide the profile image ID. Cool. And I think this should be it. We'll run the tests, and if there's any failures, we'll fix them in a second. But I think this should be it. If you have any questions, drop me a message. Otherwise, catch me on the next one. All right, so let's go back to our to-dos in here. So within upload customer profile image under customer service.java, and let's fill in the gaps. But as I said, we'll focus on testing and make sure that basically everything is working. So in here, what we have to do is we have to basically store the profile image. Now, the way we're going to do this is by invoking the DAO, so customer DAO dot, and then update, and then customer profile image ID. So you see how this is coming together. So here the profile image ID is the profile. So profile image ID, just like that, comma, and then customer ID. Cool. So basically what we do is we check if the customer exists, then we generate the profile image ID. We store that within AWS. If this fails, then we don't update. If this succeeds, we basically reflect that in the database. And when we get the profile image in here, we have the customer. We perform a select customer by ID. We have the customer row mapper. So customer DTO row mapper, if you look into this guy here, this needs the ID. So let's just here say comma, and then customer dot, and we have the profile, this guy here. Now obviously the DTO itself, right? So the DTO itself doesn't have the ID. So let's go into it in here, and we can refactor. Let's just refactor like so. So right click and then refactor, change signature. In here I'm going to add, so click on the plus sign. So this will be string, and the name is customer profile or profile image ID. And for now, let's just refactor this. Cool. So basically indent things. And now, so wherever we use the DTO, and you can see that there's a bunch of tests in here that we might have to go into and change this around. But if I go back to customer DTO mapper now, you can see that this error went away. Now let's go to customer service, and within customer service, in our beautiful method in here, so we get the customer here. So at this point, we map the customer to the DTO. And now here we have the profile image ID. So what we can do is, so in here, let's just get rid of this altogether and then put it here. So customer dot, and then profile image ID. And also we want to check, right? So if for whatever reason the customer and then the profile image ID, so here I think we can say is and then blank in here. So if it's blank, right, we basically throw. So we're going to throw new resource not found exception, and then let's just take this, put it here on the new line, and I want to say customer. So customer with ID and then blah, and then profile image not found instead. Cool. And this is pretty much it. So obviously here, if you want, I think we can change this to a var. So I wanted to use vars throughout this. So yes, we can. And also, if you want, you can just return. But let me just keep this as a byte array so that you know the data type for this. Cool. As I said, if you want, you can inline this if you prefer, just like that. I think it's better. But for readability, I'm going to leave it as so. And this is pretty much it. Catch me on the next one. Cool. Before we move any further, let's just try and run all tests in here. So let's open up tests, and not the integration tests. For now, let's just run all the tests and the customer. So I want to make sure that everything works, and yes. So we have a compilation error, which we have to fix, and that's expected because of the DTO. So in here, remember, so I said that, so have a look. So we have the customer DTO. So this guy in here, I think is going to be null. So there's no profile image there. If I press F2, this takes me to the next error. So have a look, F2, next highlighted error. And this also is the DTO. So I'm going to say null, just like that. And let's try and run the tests again. Cool. So I think that was it. Now it's running all tests and everything passed apart from the row mapper. Now this row mapper, let's have a look why it's failing. So click on difference and it looks like the password is null and the profile. So, okay, so this is null. So why is it the password null? So I thought that we had this fixed, but maybe not. So let's just, in here, let's go to the customer row mapper. So Command E, customer row mapper, and in here, so we made a change to include the profile image ID. That's fine. If I open up the test class for this, so we didn't change the test class. So here we don't have the password. Right. So I think that we forgot to add the password before. And if we look into the customer, so probably it's because now the toString contains basically everything, right? So what we are going to do now, actually, so let's just basically say, or in fact, we should have actually, so if you look into customer row mapper, rs.string, right? So this is actually returning null, okay? So that's why it's null. So let's fix this. So let's here say, basically duplicate this, and then when, and then password. So we want to return password, just like that. And also, so yes, so also we're not even comparing the new column, right? So if you want, you can basically add it as well. So this was customer, or actually was it customer? So what was it? So here, profile image ID. So profile image ID, and then here I'm gonna say, basically I'm gonna say profile image ID, or actually let's say 1, 2, or 2, 2, 2, 5 2s. Cool. So this now, so we can change this to be 5 2s, and let me just put this all in a new line, just like that. So this is much better. Oops, like this, and let's now try and run tests. So in here, click on run, and I want to run only the failed tests for now. And yes, so this works. Cool. So let's run all tests once more. So in here, I think, yes, if I close that, let's run all tests just to make sure, not that, but all tests. So open project, and then this will be customer. There you go. I think, yeah, so 38 tests should pass. Bingo. And now let's basically run everything, including integration tests. So at this point, make sure that your database is up and running with Docker. So the integration tests, I think they run already. Yes, one of them did. And the authentication ID or the authentication IT also ran. And you can see that we do have every existing test passing. Cool. So one thing here, so customer service, so this guy in here, so customer service, so not the test, but the actual class. So we have get customer profile and also upload customer profile in here. And within S3, so S3, where's S3? So Java, not on the test. So in here, so S3 buckets, so this doesn't need any tests. S3 config, probably this doesn't need any tests. And S3 service, so this, we can test this here as well, right? So next, let's go ahead and focus on testing. So we're going to write unit as well as integration tests. If you have any questions, drop me a message. Otherwise, catch me on the next one. Testing is something which is kind of out of the scope of this crash course, but yet very important. So you saw that we wrote lots of code, but how do we guarantee that the code that we wrote does work? Well, we have to write tests, okay? Now, I always ask this question: would you ever board on a plane that hasn't been tested? And the answer is absolutely no, right? So there's no chance that you'd risk your life. So it's the same thing with software. So in this crash course, I'm going to skip testing altogether, the actual videos, but I'll show you that I actually, tested the entire thing, including unit testing, mocking, as well as integration tests, right? So this is the beauty. So once you test everything, then you have, you're a bit confident in a sense that you know that your code will work if you deploy to an environment such as development or testing or production. So make sure to test your code. And as part of the full stack course, I covered testing from the ground up, and basically everything you need to know about testing. But testing is out of the scope of this crash course. So yeah, this is pretty much it. And catch you in the next one. If you've managed to get this far in here, what I want you to do is the following. So let's together stop this and open up the terminal. And in here, what we're going to do is we're going to say git checkout and then main. So basically, this now will contain all the tests. So I'm not showing you how to write all the unit tests as well as integration tests, but I just want to show you that we do have a bunch of tests in here. So I'm going to leave things as is in here. And so the changes that I've made, so if I open up the test folder and then S3, you can see that we have a bunch of tests in here. And also for customer, we changed things and we tested everything fully, as well as an integration test under journey and then customer IT. And if I scroll down in here, you should see that we have, so if I scroll down in here, so can upload and download profile pictures, and basically we test all of this. Now, I would say from this point onwards, right, so everything should just work the same, so when we deploy things. But if you want to see how I wrote the tests and whatnot, just check out to main and then carry on from there, okay? So in here, so let me just basically run all tests and you'll see that, oops, so in here, why isn't this working? Right, okay, cool. So let's together click on file and then invalidate caches and invalidate and restart. There we go. And hopefully this should fix itself. Just give it some time now. Cool, still that didn't fix. So let's try to, in here, reload the project. And there we go, cool. So that fixed the problem. So this, sometimes you'll encounter these issues. So here we've just fixed during the course, which is awesome. And cool, so let this finish. And now we are able to run the tests. So let's just run all tests. And tests, it's vital. in any application. Okay, so if you don't know testing, so I'll urge you to learn about testing. So you can see 56 tests, and everything just ensures that we have the correct implementation. Awesome. So this is pretty much it. If you have any questions on testing, as always, you can ask and I'll try my best to advise you. Otherwise, you can check the courses that we have on testing. And as part of the full stack where you learn all of this, I'll show you how to basically test. So in S3, what we've done is we created a fake implementation, which is used for unit testing purposes. So this actually stores images in our local file system. In here, you can see that this is the implementation for basically running the application locally without us having to connect to AWS directly. Cool, I'm gonna leave it here. Let me just close this and this as well. And this is pretty much it. What I want to quickly mention is if you want to upload larger files, you need to configure the application.yaml, so under Spring, and then have the servlet, and then here include multipart, max file size, max request size, and also max in memory size. So with all of this, you will be able to work with larger files. So in my case, 10 MB is absolutely fine. But if you are uploading videos and other files, then you might to increase these numbers. So go ahead and add these so that you can work with larger files. And actually, before I go, let me just show you that the default, so max file request size. So the default is 1 MB in here. The same for this one. Oh, this one is actually 10 MB. And then the max in memory is 256 kilobytes. Awesome. This is pretty much it. Catch me on the next one. For this section, what I want to implement is the ability for us to update the profile in here. So if I click on update, and what we want to have is the ability of dragging and dropping any picture in here. So if I basically get these pictures that I have in here, and this is Maisha and it's a male, and let's say that here I want to take this picture and then upload just like that. So I can drag it actually in here, or I can click in there, but eventually this should upload. So I think it was Maisha. So let me just search for Maisha. There we go. And you can see that Maisha now in here has the picture updated. So again, if I click on update, you can see that the picture now, it's present in here, and I can basically click in here, and this will bring the pop-up where I can select pictures if I cancel, and basically this is what we want to achieve. In order for us to upload files, or in our case, a profile image from our React application to our backend, we're going to use this library called React Drop Zone. So this is a library that basically makes it super easy to create drag and drop zone for files. And in here you can see the usage, and you can find the link under the description of this video. But basically it's very simple, and you could just use the hook in here or the component, and then you have the ability of uploading files to any destination. So let's go ahead together and install the React Drop Zone. So let me just take this command in here, go back to IntelliJ, and within IntelliJ, if I open up the terminal, and in here we can open a new session, and let me cd into front end, and then Angular, and then React, and inside, let me just paste the command. So npm install, and then -- save React, and then drop zone. Press enter. And to be honest, this is pretty much it. Next, let's go ahead and learn how to use this library. Cool. You saw when we run the backend, we basically get a customer which is added to our database. So in here, let me just take this customer, and this is from the logs from our Spring Boot application. And let me first log in. So here, localhost, and then colon 5173. And I want to add the email that I've just copied, and the password is just password. And then log in. And here, if I go to customers, you can see that we have Christopher, and basically this is what we want to implement, right? So Christopher, basically this is a random name which is generated, but basically this picture right here is randomly generated, and we want to have the ability of, when we click update in here, we want to have the drop zone component in here so that we can upload a picture to our backend. So let's open up this component in here and add drop zone. And in here, if I collapse this and then open up the front-end folder, we have React, and within React, we have SRC, components, and then customer. And in here, we have the update customer drawer, as well as the form. So what I'm interested in is the form itself. So here, let me just collapse this. And if I scroll down, you should see that we have the form itself in here, update customer form. Now, here at this point is where we want to add the drop zone component. So actually, just before here. So basically, if I say H1, for example, in here, and then say hello, go back, you can see that we have hello in here, right? So hello, but we want this to be the drop zone where we basically can upload a picture. So within the documentation for drop zone, you can see that the usage is quite straightforward. So they basically give you the option of using the hook or the wrapper like so. So what we're going to do is, it doesn't really matter which one you use, but let's use the hook in here. So just take this in here. So take this, Command C, and you can find this under the description of this video, and then go back. And just before this form, let's have the drop zone. And by the way, so this right here, I'm not going to have it as a component so that you can reuse it. I'll leave that up to you. So I'm just going to leave it in this file for now. So this is where we need it. So I'm just going to leave it here. So here, I'm going to leave the name as my drop zone. You can rename this if you want. Then we have to import the use callback. So let's just import that, and use drop zone as well. So let's just import that from React drop zone, just like that. And this is pretty much it. So now at this point, let's also rename this. So drop the, and then picture here, and then drag and drop, and then picture here, or click to select picture, select, and then picture. There we go. So this is much better. And what we're going to do for now is take this. So actually, let's just change this from const, and then my drop zone equals to, so basically equals to a function. This is an arrow function actually, and this is much better. Cool. So now let's basically, in here, instead of hello, we're going to say my drop zone, just like that. And this can be a self-closing tag. So let me just remove all of that. There we go. And if I open up my web browser, now you can see that it says drag and drop picture here, or click to select picture. So basically I can drag a picture, or I can click to select. So here, if I select, or click, my bad, you can see that it opens the Window Explorer, where I'm able to pretty much just select any picture. Cool. Let me cancel out of this. Next, let's style this component in here. All right, let's change this component so it looks a little bit more appealing. So let's open up IntelliJ, and within IntelliJ, if I open up my drop zone in here, and what I want to do is, you see here we have this div in here. So I'm going to change this from a div into a box in here. So just say box. And this comes from Chakra UI. And at this point, I can basically customize it. So here within here, basically within the box itself, right? So I want to add the width, so W, and this will be equal to 100 and then %. I also want to align, so text and then align, and this will be center. And let me just format things. And also let's add a border, border in here, and the border will be dashed. Let's also define the border and then color. So border and then color, and this will be gray. And then let's say gray.200. Let's also add some padding. And here I'm just going to say 6. And you can basically fine tune these numbers according to your liking. Let me also say that this box will be rounded. So rounded. And here I'm going to say, let's just say MD for medium. So within quotes, just like this. And also the border radius. So border and then radius. So this should be in here. So color and then the radius. So this should be something like 3XL. So 3XL. All right. So let me just put that in there like so. Now scroll down where we actually use the drop zone. Let's cut this, and I'm going to encapsulate this within a V and then stack, just like that. And within this V stack, let's add some spacing. So you can say spacing, and here I'm going to say 5. Let's also add margin and then bottom, so MB, and this will also be 5. Now, if I paste the drop zone like so, and let's basically save this, go back, and you can see how this is looking. So it's looking really beautiful. So let's also add an image in here in case there is one. So let's go back, and in here I'm going to say image. So make sure that this comes from Chakra as well. And in here we can basically pass a few things. So one is the border and then radius. So this will actually be full. So I want this to be completely a circle, and then box and then size, let's say 150 pixels. So 150 pixels like so. And object fit. So if the image is too big, I want it to fit basically. So I'm just going to say cover. So cover. And we also need the SRC, which we'll add in a second. But this is pretty much it. So I think for SRC, we need to add an empty string in here. Cool. If I go back to Chrome, you can see that basically we have this circle in here, which is an empty image. And when we drag and drop the picture, this right here should be reflected. Next, let's take the picture that we upload in here and save it to our backend. Cool. The next step that we need is when we drag the picture in here, or when we select the picture, to upload it to our backend, and then from our backend it goes to S3 or to our local file system depending on the implementation. So let's open up IntelliJ, and within IntelliJ let's open up project, and within project open services, and here client, and in here we're going to have two methods. So let's basically say export and then const upload and then customer profile and then picture and equals to a sync, and in here we need to take the ID and then the form and then data. So basically I'll show you this in a second. So when we pass the information, but now let's say try, and within this try and catch block, we're going to return the ASIOS. So ASIOS dot, and then this will be a post. And let's take this right here. So this will be the same across basically everything. Say backticks, and within backticks have the $, and then curly bracket, and then paste. Oh, actually, I just had it there, just like this. And then say / API / and then customers / v1 / customers, and then $, or actually / and then $ID, and what we need. So let me just put this on a new line like this. There we go. So then we say / and then the endpoint, which is profile - and then image. So this right here is the controller. So here, remember the customer controller in here, customer ID, profile, image. Let's go back, and in here, so let's just say comma, and we need to pass the form data as the payload, and also the headers. So here, this will be an object, or actually the config, which is going to be an object. And basically I want to get the token, so say dot, and then get auth config. But also what I want to add is, so here I want to add content and then type. So content - type, and this will be multi-part / form and then data. So have a look. So if I open up customer controller, this is exactly what we've done before, multi-part, form, data. So here I'm just specifying on the client as well. And this should be it. Now let's basically end this with semicolon, and we're going to basically catch E. And at this point, I'm going to throw, oops, not try, but throw, and then E. And it's as simple as this. Cool. Next, let's use this method within our drop zone component. Okie dokie. So let's open up the update customer form, and inside of our drop zone in here, so inside of the drop zone, you can see that there's a method on drop. So on drop has the accepted files, and what we are interested is in just one file, right? So basically we just upload one file and process that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our method called upload, and then the profile picture in here, and we need to pass the ID. So let's just say ID, which we don't have, and I'll show you in a second how we're going to pass that. And then the form, so form, and then data, which we also don't have, and I'll show you in a second. All right, so what we're going to do is the following. So in here, we need to create first the form data object. So const, and then form data equals to new, and then form, and then data, like so. And within form data, so I'm going to say form data dot append the file, so file, and then comma, and then accepted files, and I want to grab the very first file, just like that. And this is basically the form data. Now this name in here, so name file, is basically what we accept in here. Multi-part file, the request param, which is file, so it has to match what the client sends. So if I go back in here, and now we need to pass the ID. Now the ID will be passed as a prop, so basically have curly brackets, and then say ID. And the way we get the ID now is, so in here where we use the drop zone, so in here, have a look, update customer form, fetch customer, initial values, customer ID. So here, let's just say customer, or actually ID, and this is customer ID. And in fact, let's just call it customer ID. So where is it? So customer ID. So now you can see that this drop zone actually is mainly focused on customers, right? So I'm not refactoring to be generic because I don't have to. At this point, I just needed to upload profile pictures. But if you want to refactor, go for it. So here we need to also pass the customer ID instead of ID, and job done. Now, this is complaining because we need to say dot and then. So if basically we have the response, so R in here, or res, which I'm not going to do anything with it. So I'm just going to say success notification, and then I want to say success. And let's just put this on a new line, just like this. Success notification, that's the title. And then I'm going to say profile, and then picture uploaded. So if this fails, so then, and then here I'm going to say dot, and then catch, and here basically the error. And if there's something wrong with it, this actually has to be like this. So error. And if there's something wrong with it, I'm just going to say, I think it's error notification. Yes, error notification. And here I'm just going to say failed or error. It doesn't really matter. You can choose whatever message you want for the title and description. So profile picture, upload, and then, or actually, let's just say failed upload. And it's basically like this, right? And also, if you want, you can say log, and you can log the error to have more visibility. But for us, I'm going to remove all of this, in fact, and also the response. So we're not doing anything with it. So we just leave it as is. And to be honest, I think this is pretty much it. Next, let's go ahead and test it. And see whether we have uploaded a picture for this customer in here. So currently it's not storing to S3 because the implementation is to store in my local machine. So in here, I'm within the database, and if I say select and then star from, and then customer, and let me just say \x, and then run the exact same command. And you can see that we have the profile image ID in here, and the customer ID is 43. So let me just open a new shell like so, and I'm going to cd into, so basically .amigoscode, and then S3, and inside we have the folder, or basically this is the bucket name, and inside we have profile images, and inside we should have, so here if I say ls, you can see that these are all the IDs, and we should see 43 in here. So 43. So here I'm going to say cd and then 43, and inside ls, this right here is the ID of the picture itself. So if you look at this ID, is the exact same thing as this one in here. And this actually is our profile picture. So if I basically say open dot, and this brings the window explorer, and if I select this image and then press spacebar, you can see that, hooray, it did work. Cool. So let me basically cancel out of this and out of this. And the next thing that we need to do is basically we also have to close this and then fetch the customers, but we'll do that later. but let's basically get the profile picture back in here. So here you can see that we need the profile picture in here, and also if I close this, in here. Also, if I click on update, and what I want to show you is, so if I bring the file explorer in here, let's try and basically drag and drop. So you can see that it also works. So we can click, but also we can drag and drop. So if I drop, you can see that profile picture updated, or uploaded, my bad. And if I open up the terminal, and if I press ls, now we have two pictures in here, and they're both the same. Cool. So I'm not going to open this one because they are the exact same pictures, and you can see that this is working. If you have any questions, drop me a message. Otherwise, catch me on the next one. Cool. In order to see our profile picture that we just uploaded in here and also in this code, we need to do the following. So let's open up the client.js first. So here, client.js, and what we need is, so let's just take this right here, and we're going to say export, and then const customer profile, and then picture, and then URL equals to, and here we need to pass the ID of the customer. And so on a new line, I'm going to basically return the URL like so. So basically this will be the ID, and I need to remove that. And this is pretty much it. Now I think I need basically, oh actually not that, but I need to remove the return from here. Cool. So on a new line, so this will give us the customer profile picture URL. And you can even say get in here if you want. But now let's open up the update customer draw form, and in here, so where we have my drop zone. So if I scroll down, my drop zone, remember we have the SRC. So here I'm going to say get, or actually we call it customer profile picture URL, and then pass the customer ID inside. And let's import this. So insert import at the very top, and we're good to go. Let's open up the web browser, and if I click on update, check this out. You can see that the picture is in here, which is cool. Now let's close this and also add it in here. So let's go back to IntelliJ, and that will be part of the customer card. And within customer card, we have the avatar in here, and the avatar now will be, so the SRC for the avatar will be, so in here, customer profile picture URL, and then we have the, in here, I think it's just the ID. So this ID, and we just pass it. Yes, that's the ID. So we just pass it. Where is it? Avatar. I lost you. So in here, ID. There we go. Save. Let's go back and check this out. So this is beautiful stuff. So if I click on update, you can see that now we do have the profile pictures in place. Next, let's go ahead and fix the fact that when we upload a new profile picture, we should have the UI reflected on the new changes. Cool. The last thing that I want to do is in here, when we update the customer, so in here with the new profile, what we want to do is basically invoke. So we should have done this before, but that's fine. So fetch customers, have a look. So in here, we use fetch customers like so. And also, I think we do close the modal maybe, but let's go ahead and do this. So here all we have to do really is basically pass the fetch customer. So here we're going to say fetch customers, just like that. And then inside, so where we have fetch customers, so we also pass it. So fetch customers equals to fetch customers. And let me put this on a new line like this. All right, so in here, I think this is much better. And indent things like this. Cool, so this is looking good. Now let's go to our my drop zone, and upon success upload, we want to invoke fetch and then customers like this. And there we go. So I'm really bad with JavaScript. So here I'm missing a bunch of semicolons, and with JavaScript, this is actually optional. So you'll see that some places I do have, like here, and other places I don't. Cool. So this is when a backend engineer works with JavaScript. So let's now test these changes. So in here, I do have basically a new picture. So if I click on update, and let me bring this picture. So here, female, and then 2, I'm going to drop the picture in here. And you can see that now it updated the picture, and we are pretty much done. So here, update, and you can see that the picture now has been reflected. And this is pretty much it. Next, let me show you something which I forgot to change on the back end earlier on. The last thing that I want to do is if I right click on this picture, inspect, and in here, so let me put this bigger so you see. So if I scroll down, you can see that we have the image source in here, and I can click on it. So if I click on this, you can see that I do get gibberish basically, right? So this is the byte array that we get back. So what I want actually is when someone visits this link right here, then we want to display the actual picture. Well, to fix that on the back end, all we have to do is within customer controller in here. So have a look. So we have in here, get customer profile image, and here get mapping, say comma, and then inside say produces. And when you add produces, it adds a value to the endpoint URL. And here we can say media type dot, and you can choose PNG or JPEG. It doesn't really matter. There we go. Indent things, and let's reload the backend. There we go. So now we have a new customer. Let's go back. And if I reload this same picture in here, you can see that now we get the profile image in here. And also in here, so if I basically close the console, close this, we have a new customer. You can see that this other customer doesn't have a picture. So this is actually a male. So let's just say update. And here I'm going to click this time, and then male, open, and check this out. So this is nice. If you have any questions for what we've done in this section, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, next, I'm going to deploy all of these changes. All right, now let's deploy these changes and watch our CI/CD pipeline take action for both the backend as well as the front end. So in here, let's open up IntelliJ, and I'm going to commit these changes. So here, I'm going to basically commit through IntelliJ, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say React dash and then profile picture and then uploads. There we go. So commit, and we also changed the backend, but that's fine, which is basically these changes in here for image JPEG value. And I'm going to push, and this will push straight to main. And in here, I need to rebase. Give it a second. Awesome. Now let's watch the changes being deployed. So in here, I've got Slack, and this is the repo. If I go to code, you can see that we have now React profile picture upload. So this will trigger the backend CI/CD. Now you can see that deployment started, React profile picture, building with Maven. So while this is doing this, what I'm going to show you is, so this is the backend. So if I open up AWS console, so in here within the console, if I go to AWS Amplify, and we have the full stack course and then React. And now you can see that. So basically, oh, I think it already deployed. No, it hasn't. Right, jobs failure. Oh, wow. All demos never go according to plan. So it must be like an integration test. So let's open up IntelliJ quickly. And in here, so I do have, so project, and let's close this, go to the back end. And that's because of this. So we've changed this and we didn't update the tests. So src, test, Java, and then basically the customer IT in here. So let's just right click, and I know that it's this test basically. So let's just run this test. So just give it a second. And you can see the benefit of CI/CD, right? So this fails. And it says, so in here, if I scroll down, right, 500, no content. And right, no acceptable representation. That's fine. So I know exactly what it is. And even IntelliJ will tell me. So IntelliJ is telling me that it's failing right here. Now remember, we changed this from, I think before it was application.json, the default, but this now is JPEG. So J and then peg. And if I run the test again, I think this time it should work. Fingers crossed. Hooray. Cool. Let me just basically commit this as well. And bear in mind that I'm not using pull requests in here. So fix and then test. There we go. Commit and push. And then push. And let's watch it again. Awesome. So in here, so if I refresh this, you can see that we have the new commit. Hopefully this time it should just pass. There we go. It kicked in. Building with Maven. And at this point, basically, I can even show you. So if I go to actions, you can see that this is running. And deploy. And you can see that still building. Oh, okay. So you just push the Docker image right here. And now it's deploying to Elastic Beanstalk. So hopefully this should also pass. And you can see that all the tests actually passed. So if it reaches this stage, it means that all the tests did pass. So just wait a minute or so. And hooray, you can see that this was success. Awesome. Now let's open up AWS Amplify. And in here you can see that the full stack course React is running. So you can see the last deployment, which is literally just now. And to be honest, this is pretty much it. Next, let's go ahead and test our deployed application. Cool, let's go ahead and test this. So in here, not in localhost anymore. So this is localhost, and this is the live application, full stack React, and then .amigoscode.dev. And you can try this for yourself as well. So let me just log in with this user in here, and feel free to sign up and create an account if you have to. I'm going to log in, and bad credentials. Okay, so I think so I need to create a user. So let's just say in here foo and then bar, and here I'm going to say foo bar 2000. So hopefully nobody picked this name at and then amigoscode.com. Let me just take this just in case. 22. The password will be password. So feel free to hack my account and then mail, submit, and cool. So now let's go to customers. And hooray, you can see that this is working beautifully. So let's in here update. So we're gonna try, hold on, if I refresh, do we get the same user? So 2986, refresh, 2986, cool. So let's just update. And in here, let's just grab a picture. And Aussie 2, it's a male. So let's just put Amigoscode in here. And, oops, it worked. But, so the customer went, I don't know where, because there's so many people in here trying to use the application. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to, oh, actually, I was going to delete everyone, but here, it works. Hooray! We've done it. So this is cool. So let's try, let's see, any females in here? So, female. No, I think, yeah, no females. So basically, we could just add a picture anyways. So Lorraine in here, update. And we're going to add this picture. There we go. And it worked. You can see that Lorraine is right here. And you can basically take this picture also, so we can basically inspect and we can grab the URL. So here, I can click on it and you can see that this is my picture and it's coming live from the API, which is under HTTPS, and everything is working beautifully. Awesome. I might delete everyone and add maybe some logic to say delete everyone after, I don't know, maybe 24 hours or something like that, so that there's not many people. So there's over 1,000 people here, which is crazy. Cool. This is pretty much it. And if you have any questions on what we've done throughout these last few sections, as well as the exercise, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, catch me on the next one. Okie dokie. If you enjoyed this video, literally just smash the like button, comment down below, let me know what other things that you want to see next. And I'm going to leave a coupon code under the description of this video so that you can take benefit and, learn the full stack professional course that I have for you, which is a course that is changing lives. Many people are managing to secure jobs, and people that work for companies, mid developers, senior developers, all are benefiting from this course. So this is a course that you won't find anywhere else apart from Amigoscode. This is pretty much it, and I'll see you on the next one. Assalamu alaikum.